Poland is mere weeks away from kicking off its presidency of the Council of the European Union and has already flagged that it wants to tackle security as part of its 6-month mandate. I am Angela Scoogens in the TVP World studio in Brussels, and I'm joined by my guest, Luuk van Middelaar, who is the director of the Brussels Institute for Geopolitics. He's here to wade through the weeds and figure out what this actually means for Warsaw and for Brussels. Hi, Luuk.
Hi, Angela.
So Warsaw has signalled that it wants to tackle security as part of its 6-month mandate. This seems quite ambitious. How likely is it that it will gain security?
Well, security is totally in tune with the times. Because think about the 1st of January when Poland takes that role in the EU. What will we see? We will still have the war in Ukraine. We can talk about that. We have unstable situation in the Middle East with wars, Israel, Lebanon, Syria. Trump is about to take the American presidency, a great factor of uncertainty. And of course, there's China in the background and all of it. So I think there's a real sense in Europe which feels a bit vulnerable, generally speaking, a bit insecure, that we need more protection, more security. And I think the way the Polish government has thought about this is clever by taking that one theme, but also laying it out in very different fields. Because security, of course, is military security. Think about defense industry for Ukraine, production of more weapons. It's also energy security, as we have seen after Russia's invasion of Ukraine was a problem all across Europe. It's about migration and secure borders as well. And there are many other topics which can be brought under that umbrella, and where it's never about going from 0 to 1, but it's about injection of new energy into specific topics to produce more security and protection for Europe at large.
You listed off some of the major geopolitical issues and some of the areas that Poland wants to get security with. My thinking is that because there are so many conflicts, you mentioned Russia's invasion of Ukraine as well as what's going on in Syria, because there are so many conflicts, is it likely that it will kind of gain any security? Like, do you know what I mean? Because there is such a gamut of issues that are going on. Instead of just one issue, is it likely that Poland will be able to tackle all of this?
Well, a presidency is about working also in many different fields. So Polish ministers chair the Council of Ministers here in Brussels. So there is an energy council. So they bring the security dimension. There is a migration council. They bring the security dimension. There is an economic council, foreign affairs council. So in each of these gatherings, they bring that dimension and they can make a difference, I think, because the Polish government is currently in a very strong position as well, is listened to by its peers across the European Union. And as I said, the moment is also people are hearkening for this kind of message and leadership.
And I think as well, because Poland has seemed to be quite aggressive in terms of defence and security, we know that it spends at least 4.7% of GDP on security and defence as part of its NATO alliance. Something interesting that I picked up going through the Polish priorities for the presidency was this emphasis on tackling hybrid threats. This seems to be a bit of a buzzword in Brussels at the moment. What does that mean exactly?
Well, a hybrid threat is basically a threat which you cannot immediately catalogue as a military threat. But we're talking about acts of sabotage. It can be disinformation, it can be cyberattacks, it can also be what they call the weaponization of migration. So all kinds of ways to create instability or insecurity, but below a certain threshold of sending in soldiers. So these are hostile acts. They're hard to grasp, also legally and politically. But I think it is right to put some focus on that, because we see, in particular with the behavior of Russia and its disinformation campaigns, that this is undermining even the social fabric of our societies, creating polarization. And even if it's difficult to get a good grasp on it, because it's always a little bit ambiguous, I think it's very important they try and bring it up the agenda.
I'm not sure if you know, but is it mainly Russia that's responsible for these hybrid threats, or do we know of any other actors, or is it mainly Russia?
Well, there are also sometimes questions about China, but I think Russia is in the forefront of it, especially in the current situation. And also, of course, I presume for Poland that is the most acute threat in this respect. And some of your Baltic neighbors have suffered really from cyber attacks in the recent past. So it is a growing concern.
Yeah. And you mentioned migration. We know that Poland seems to be quite strict and a bit more conservative in terms of its migration policies. I'm talking about the pushback of people from Belarus. It also seems to be a bit at odds with what the EU's policy is. Could this present a challenge for Poland's presidency, or could it use these policies as part of its mandate?
Well, I think migration currently is an issue for almost all governments. The President of the European Council, the man who chairs the summit, has just visited 27 capitals, and one of his key takeaways that almost all of the leaders, the presidents and the prime ministers, so from Warsaw to Stockholm to Lisbon and Dublin, they care about migration. So, and they want overall a stronger message on migration. But you're absolutely right, Angela, there's a kind of tension between a message of charity, which the EU also cares deeply about. People in need, we want to help them. We have legal obligations to help them. That's one important goal. And the other goal is to have secure borders, to make sure that not smugglers profit by bringing people over the border, often victims of these practices. Indeed, it's true that the Polish government has a rather strong position on this. I think there is some sympathy, at least politically, even if some of the solutions are sometimes encountering legal obstacles.
Another kind of major question is that, you know, as Germany and France, they've been traditionally seen as the superpowers of Europe. As we know, Olaf Scholz recently lost a motion in the Senate. Emmanuel Macron, President of France, is also not doing too well. Does this present an opportunity for Poland, especially as you mentioned earlier with Donald Trump being inaugurated at the beginning of next year? Could Poland present itself as the mouthpiece for Europe?
I think it represents an opportunity for Poland, indeed. Because you have to see it like this. The European Union is not a simple state. It's a club of states. And you need to bring them all together. And usually France and Germany play a very important role. And it's good to also have them, especially if you have these very far-reaching decisions we're talking about on defense, on the economy, you need to have them with you. But domestically, as you say, their situation is weakened. And that offers more space for Poland as another great European nation and in the role of the presidency to bring forward some of these agendas. And when I think about Donald Trump, of course, the main political event globally of the presidency will be, let's say, or at least the one on the agenda, the inauguration of Trump, 20th of January, right at the start of your presidency. And for the Europeans, it will be a very uneasy situation. It's about our security, what happens in Ukraine, about tariffs and trades. And they will have to ask themselves, how do we speak to Trump? Who do we send to the White House? Who can speak on behalf of Europe? And as you say, indeed, Macron is weakened. There's practically not going to be a strong German chancellor before, well, elections in February, April, May. And so there are leaders who have been there already during the first term of Trump, not least your Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who at the time was the chair of the European Council. So he, with others, can be a voice for Europe also in that respect. And what I think is most important there is that European leaders should keep a sense of unity. Because Trump, he loves to divide and rule, play us off one against the other. So a united front is very important. As Tusk already said back in 2017 when he was in his European role, he said, united we stand, divided we fall. So that message, he has also the personal authority to bring to the table of leaders and to carry forward from a position of strength. Because the worst thing you can do with Donald Trump is to arrive begging, cap in hand, as a supplicant for security and protection, that he disrespects. What Trump does respect is a language and a posture of strength, of an equal. And even if there is, of course, a security dependence we have vis-à-vis the United States, when we are united, and I hope Poland will help with that, we can be in a position of equality also vis-à-vis that very sometimes unpredictable US president.
That's a great point to end on, and I guess it ties itself up with the whole security mandate as part of the Polish presidency. I guess we'll see how that unfolds. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, Luuk.
With pleasure, Angela.
And thank you so much for watching. My name is Angela Scoogens, and I'll be reporting on the goings-on in Brussels as we inch closer towards that presidency kick-off date. Thank you.